Hi, welcome to the Dr. Milton Social Work Show. It's very good to see you all tonight. I always appreciate you tuning in here on Monday nights to hear what I've got to say, to hear what I'm trying to give some information about. Um, Coming off a really exciting week last week with the National Association of Social Workers 2 days of action against police reform or for police reform. It's a carryover from all of these calls around the civil unrest related to the senseless killing of black men primarily, but certainly anyone who's been a victim of excessive use of force, lethal force, chokeholds, um, and all these sort of unprofessional and actually unregulated behaviors by uh, the police. Um, so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about where we are with COVID-19. I want to talk a little bit about the lack of leadership on the part of the administration in this country. At the national level, having really good leadership from state and local authorities, at least in my state, in our state here in New Jersey. I can't speak for some of the more regressive states, particularly the southern states, and uh, my heart goes out to people who live in the South. I really don't think those elected officials have your best interest at heart. I want to also talk about Michelle Obama, who has a new podcast out, and share my impressions of that with you. And then, as always, going to hopefully get you to take some action and give you some information. So let us start at the beginning, which is we still have COVID-19 going on. Um, the guidance is pretty much the same as it was. I'm going to set this alarm here. Um, we should be wearing masks. All the progress we have made at this point in New Jersey is because citizens did the right thing. Wearing masks, they're socially distancing, they're only out in public when they need to be, they're resisting the urges to jump full swing into life with its inherent risk these days in workplaces and in the public arena. I mean, the essential workers are still doing their magnificent job of taking care of us in hospitals and making sure essential services are happening. Um, and, uh, we have been making some good steps in New Jersey towards opening up the economy because we have lower numbers. It makes sense. All of this sacrifice is paying off. So we're seeing restaurants opening. We're seeing the innovation of people who are doing all kinds of things, making adaptations in comedy shows and theater and concerts and are gathering in the public arena, as it should be, because we're not out of the woods. Um, so there are essential workers who've never stopped working, people working, social workers on the front lines as well, in residential programs, in and out of hospitals, clinics, responding to domestic violence, responding to people who are homeless, responding to people who are having substance and drug issues, responding to people with mental health crises, dealing with children who need to continue to be safe and protected during this time, working in the courts. Um, and now the next big call is to resume life in the classrooms. And I think government is appropriately at the local level and the state levels are reaching out to parents and to unions who are responsible for the welfare of the workforce and they're collaborating on guidance. This is the way it should be. You know, and public schools where resources were not plentiful to begin with. I mean, yes, there's a lot of dollars thrown at public education, but oftentimes the buildings are dilapidated. Oftentimes the air and ventilation systems are non-existent. Uh, Oftentimes there's overcrowding in classrooms. So how do you do the social distancing? And what do you do when I saw this picture on Facebook the other day of a high school, I forget which state it was in, and just your usual regular traffic jam in the hallways when classes were um, ended and high school students were heading to their next classes. And I'm looking at the sea of young people, and very few had masks on, and certainly no social distancing was happening. So how do we keep kids safe? That's a very important thing. So we're waiting on guidance for that. We have a good system here in New Jersey. We can feel really proud of the way parents and government and unions and who are the major stakeholders. And I hope that they also ask the kids what they think. I mean, kids aren't just a wooden piece of like cog in the machinery. They're real, live human beings. And what's their say in this? Have we asked the high school students, the elementary school and the middle school students? Have we asked the college students? Have they weighed in on this? We don't often ask young people. We just make decisions for them. So I'm hopeful that we'll come to some sane, rational, safe policy when it comes to reopening the schools. It's not what you hear in Washington, however. Um, but we know the motive there is it's not the well-being of children. We do know this. We know the motive is to project a falsehood about the state of America to the world, and it's a false narrative by and large. We know that we have a person in the White House who does not speak the truth, and it's it's a lot of things. It's infuriating. It's frustrating. It's tragic, um, and it is the way it is. At least for the next 89 days. Let's hope. So racism is on everybody's minds, as it should be. Enough is enough. We've been here before. No, the election of Barack Obama didn't mean we solved the race problems. In fact, the powers that be made a decision on the night of whatever that was, November the 6th or the 5th, in 2008, that when Barack Obama won, that he was going to be the last. Like, things started being planned then. When we heard Mitch McConnell and others say things like, he'll be a one-termer, or he'll be, and then when he won the second time, they just clamped down more and making sure his legacy and his policies would not stick. And of course, Donald Trump is essentially an Obama eraser. Like, we could say that. Like, he is such a small-minded man. He knows no gradients of gray. He sees no good in anyone that he considers to be the enemy. Barack Obama, President Barack Obama, was not the enemy of the American people. He was not the enemy of white people. Yes, his election caused a backlash and inspired the white nationalists and the white ideology. That reality combined with the knowledge that we all have that black and brown people were going to become the new majority in this country. It's a tipping point. It was a new reality coming down the pike. And that fear, white fear, is what we're seeing now, not across all white people, but across particularly white men who happen to run the show politically in this country. And so you take that ideology and that fear, and you combine it with power, even the likes of the unfettered power we see from Donald Trump, then we know the horrific consequences of that in terms of moving this country away from policies in every arena that's in the interest of the people. We're not there right now. We have regressed in this country. So racism is the undercurrent that has been with us since the founding of this nation. And as a woman of color in this country who has personally experienced plenty of personal discrimination, but who interacts in systems where institutional racism is alive and well, I have a very different experience in this world than most of my white peers. And so when we're reckoning with this, what does systemic racism look like? What does it look like in healthcare? What does it look like with health disparities? What does it look like in the economy, with low-wage workers being overwhelmingly people of color? What does it look like in education, where public schools that service primarily children of color are the poorest, are the ones with the lower achievement scores and gaps? What is it like when it comes to voting? Like, why is there such an all-out assault on voting rights right now? Gerrymandering, eliminating the census, cutting it short by a full month or two, so we don't get a good count in this country. The reason why the census is in place is so there can be an accurate accounting of the number of people that live in this country. So that when we make decisions, we meaning our elected officials, and I do say we for them because we are governed. We're a democracy. We're a representative democracy. We elect representatives to represent our interests, the people, um, and um, they have forsaken us. I mean, their interests clearly lie in the interest of the corporate sector. So it is true that there are different lived experiences for people in this country who are of color, especially in black or brown skin. Let me tell you what happened to me on the highway yesterday. Um, as you know, we organized the End Racism, End Trumpism caravans. This is a local campaign that my wife and I are doing, and friends are doing it all around the country. It's just a way to safely promote the message that we believe in the humanity of all people, and we are fed up with the scourge of the policies of the Trump administration. So we have these signs that we put on our cars, and we were on the highway heading to a friend's house on the Jersey Turnpike heading south. At around exit 13, a white truck appeared on the passenger side of the car, and I looked over because it was honking its horn, and young, say in his 30s, white man, black short crew cut, New York license plates, just started flipping me the finger and cursing at me like a maniac. I didn't have the windows down, but I could see by the way his lips were being formed that he was saying unfriendly things. I think he was cursing and screaming. Meanwhile, we're going 70 miles an hour here on the turnpike, right? Um, and he got dangerously close to my door. He was sort of careening close and threatening and being intimidating. So we slowed down. I certainly turned my gaze away from him. I didn't want to dignify him with my attention. And then, but I kind of kept an eye out of the corner of my eye because, you just don't know these days, right? Like, I'm thinking, does he have a weapon? How nuts is he? And I don't use that term lightly. And, you know, it's persisted from exit 13 down to exit 11, which is about, I don't know, maybe 8 miles or something like that. And careened in front of us. We were in the middle lane. We slowed down. We slowed down to get behind him. He slowed down to get close to us to slow down, and then he got in front of us, and then he just took off like a rocket and careened across 3 lanes of traffic to exit on the Garden State Parkway South exit. What a nut. This was the behavior of a person who just saw a sign in our car that said, "End racism and stop Trumpism." Kind of scary. Look, I don't know why white people don't support having professional police officers. I don't know why good cops on police forces who observe bad behavior, illegal behavior, unsanctioned behaviors, let their partners get away with it. In my profession, if I see a psychotherapist who's drunk, who inappropriately touches a client, there's no great blue wall in psychotherapy. We're not enabling that behavior. It is unacceptable. It is zero tolerance. I have a duty to communicate to my licensing authority as supervisors and authority if I see something like that happens that violates the rights of our clients and violates our ethical code. Police have a similar code. Did you know that? Did you know that? They have internal regulations. They aren't supposed to murder people in their custody, right? So we need to make that clear now. The use of lethal force is unacceptable. And to give this umbrella answer that my life was under, I felt my life was threatened because a black man's holding a cell phone, or just because you see black skin, because of implicit bias and a culture of racism, right? It's the roots in the tree we're talking about, not just the apples. But why are good cops enablers? Why do they fail to report their brothers and sisters in uniform? The Great Blue Wall of Silence is nothing more than complicity for systemic racism. How do you sleep at night, good cops? How do you sleep at night? And then you have Donald Trump, who's interviewed by Geraldo. I don't know if you caught that interview. And he's saying, the best things to black people since sliced bread, since Abraham Lincoln, since, you know. Remember the narcissism I talked about and the pathology of this man? We all see it. And then Geraldo says, wow, you are really a civil rights activist, Mr. President. After I puked, I thought, how could we be at this place in our country? Donald Trump thinks he gives black people things. I give them this. I gave them housing. I gave them jobs. You know what? He sounds like old Master Donald on a plantation in the South in 1840s America. You're not giving us nothing. We're American citizens, Mr. Trump. We're human beings. We are entitled to the resources of this country. Our backs and labor built this country. This country still owes us. You know nothing about the history of this nation. And it's an insult to black people when you say, oh, look what I did for the black people. And you can push Kanye West all you want. You're just a desperate little man. And America's going to make sure you're a one-term president. Because our eyes are open, black and white alike. You have convened and coalesced the great coalition. A coalition that will defeat you. Because we have hearts and minds. Two organs you do not possess. We're smart. And we give a damn about other people. We give a damn about the people in Beirut who suffered through that god-awful explosion that you yourself, without any evidence, your impulse tendencies to say stupid things about a horrible accident that disrupted the lives of an entire country. I feel for those people in Beirut, just as I feel for all American citizens, not just Democrats, everybody. I see the humanity in everybody. So the other thing I want to turn you on to is, Michelle Obama has a podcast now. It is so inspirational to hear Michelle Obama, and her husband, by the way. So she has a podcast. You can catch it on Spotify, I believe. It's free, it's educational, it's informative. And she's just chit-chatting with her friend Nichelle about their Chicago roots, and she's opining about her life and her personal and professional life. And she disclosed something very interesting in the course of this podcast. She talked about the impact of all the racial strife and economic strife and the public health strife going on right now. And she said, in her own words, I really feel like I'm in a depression. What a heavy admission for the former First Lady. But what she's feeling, we're all feeling. We're tired. We're tired of the endless chaos that the current administration has just heaped on all of us. None of us expected this. I mean, yeah, we do. Donald Trump had some policies we wouldn't agree with. But, we've had other Republican presidents where we disagreed with policy. We did not descend into this pit of personal hate and hell that we're in right now. Enough is enough, she said. And until we create the change that we need to see, it's going to remain the same. We're the change agents, like I said before. We're citizens, we're a democracy, we still are, even though it looks like it's fragile. The bones are still good, we're a democracy. Voting is essential. We have to go to the polls on November 3rd like our lives depend on it, because our lives do. If you believe in the humanity of all people, you have to go to the polls. If you want to see a cessation of the hate, you have to go to the polls. If you want to see the economy rebound, we have to get away from this trickle-down theory of politics that every 8 years or so, when Republicans are in charge, that we descend into this mass movement of wealth from the poor and working class and the professional classes to the rich. That's their theory, and they think if they give all that money to the rich, they'll rain down their money and goods to us. Doesn't work that way. The only times these economies have bounced back is when we put money in the hands of the people. Congress right now is fighting to give money. They can come up with trillions of dollars in a heartbeat. There's no money to save families right now with lost jobs, who for no reason of their own is suffering with a pandemic, a global pandemic. So voting is key. And Michelle's guest said, I hope when this is over, we don't return to normal, but we return to better. We got to get to better, because the way it wasn't good either. So enough is enough. We have to keep seeing all people as human. And if you're working for change, take care of yourself. This is a long, long struggle. We have to take care of ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually. Time to take the deep dive into spirit, to give us the armor we need to wage this struggle locally, nationally, in our states, for the long haul. That's how change comes. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to sustain it. And, you know, any progress we've ever made in this country came because citizens were engaged. The change starts with you. It starts with me. And I join hands with you in creating not the way the world was, but to create a better world. Listen, if you put some information after this video, if you're struggling with any emotional difficulties, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, 1-800-273-TALK is available for you, 1-800-273-TALK, or you can catch them at www.suicidepreventionlifeline.org. I'll put that information up for you. Take good care. Until the next time, my friends. Peace, justice, and love.